Welcome to Iblis Manifestations. All right, cool. Mr. Matt Bacon, my friend, how are you doing this evening, sir? It's a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm glad we can finally lock it in. I'm good, tired, but I do this really dumb thing where I'm never in a country for more than a week. And that's not intentional, just here we are. Um,
Yeah, no, I appreciate
so,
you. I know you got a crazy busy schedule and there's a lot going on, so I appreciate you fitting this
yeah, of course.
in your extremely busy schedule, man. And yeah, so where are you at now?
Right now, I'm in Norway, where my girlfriend lives. We're in Oslo.
All right,
So,
cool. I like Oslo.
keeping it grim. Um,
That's it, man. Yeah. Oslo's a cool place, man. Inferno is usually my main excuse to kind of get there, and it's such a vibe every year, you know. It's just kind of, there's like something in the air, it just never gets old, especially if you're a fan of black metal.
yeah, I mean, I think there and beyond the gates, they're really well curated, which is really important, right? But I think that there's definitely something where it's always interesting to see an artist surrounded by people who've been watching that artist for decades. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like you can go to Inferno and like independent of any sort of like black packing thing. Like you can go to Inferno and like make friends with dudes who saw Mayhem in 1987. And
Yeah.
that's like kind of cool. And it's like this is the place for those guys to go hang out. And as someone who like is interested in the history, I just want to know. You know what I mean? No, so it's really cool to go to concerts where it's like with the legacy people in the spaces those things initially happened. You know what I mean? Because I think, and then especially I think if it's a festival in the same space consistently or in a special space, like that takes on a character of its own, like Prophecy Fest, where
Of
it's like in
course.
a cave and it feels very like, and like with Inferno, John D. Rockefeller, like you just think about all the memories. I don't know how many Infernos you've been to, but I think of all the memories I have there, you know, and I think of all the memories all my friends have there. And it's like, oh, it's kind of cool.
It's very cool. I think one of the, I've only been really going there for like a couple of years, but you know, part of that is just purely because traveling's been difficult with an Iranian passport, you know, and you know that's a
Yeah.
problem I no longer have to deal with anymore, which is quite
Congratulations.
pleasant. Thank you, thank
I
you.
wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, well, you know, it's one of those things, man. It took me a lot longer than I think it takes most people, but the day I got my British citizenship, I was like, I am embracing the fuck out of this, you know, and you know, to the point that I was actually recommending you some Yorkshire phrases, if you remember.
Yes, I remember. I remember we talked about this. Yeah. No, I actually had going into this. How am I going to work in the phrase "a sticky wicket"?
Yes, sticky. You did good, man. You managed to fit it
no.
in there. But yeah, man, it's absolutely great. And one of the things I love about it is, you know, when you go there and then you realize that fucking like Slayer played there in like 1986 or something like that,
Yeah.
and at the Rockefeller, and like how many of the people that are like in massive black metal bands now were actually there. It's pretty cool. It's good to be there.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying, right? Like that's what's interesting about especially the history of black metal is like so obviously there's like this hagiography of like making these people bigger than they are and you know they're all just like good musicians but like ultimately just some guy but like it's kind of interesting being like oh like I think like Euronymous first met Varg or someone at like an Anthrax show and now like you can meet your bandmate who you hopefully don't kill also at an Anthrax show. And you know, but it's like these weirdly specific things where it's like, oh, those patterns can repeat. You know, whether or not that's a good thing, I don't know, but it can.
Yeah, no, well, it is a good thing, you know, because you kind of need. I think shows are a great place for just making connection, you know, because this is the thing I always say when you're at a festival, you know, where like you said, if it's Prophecy or whether it's Inferno, whatever it is. Usually you're surrounded by people, so you assume, oh wow, there are so many metalheads, but we're a very small group of humans on Earth who actually listen to this style of music,
And
statistically.
and there's also an interesting thing when you look at who those ticket buyers are and broader scope record sales, like the group of people who go to a lot of European black metal festivals is really like the same like 5-10,000 ticket buyers. Like that audience is like that audience and it's like they're not like I don't know. I don't like I think that people overestimate the market cap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I find fascinating because I think that what people don't understand about music consumption is that so like almost everyone likes music, right? Obviously there's a few weird exceptions, fine. Okay. But almost everyone likes music. Then the amount of people willing to like go to a club show is actually relatively small. The amount of people actively looking for new artists relatively small, right? The amount of people willing to go to like a festival, and if we split festivals into two types of like Inferno 3,000 cap versus Hellfest 80,000 cap, like that, like those audiences are not as big as people seem to think sometimes.
Hi there everyone, just a quick moment of your time. This is to let you know that my band TRIVAX will be performing all across Europe come this November and December. We are going to be going on tour to support Absu joining forces with Zemail to do the 30-year anniversary of the Son of Tifereth album. And we will also be joined by Ancient. So this is quite a legendary lineup, as you can already understand, and it's an honor for us to be a part of it. District 19 are doing the courtesy of organizing this run, and we're going to be playing a lot of different places. We're going to be doing quite a number of shows in Germany. We will be playing in Italy, in Belgium, Netherlands, France, Austria, Switzerland, and that includes Eindhoven Metal Meeting, Brain Crusher from Hell in Germany, and Unholy Congregation in Belgium. and it's going to be a blast. We're very much looking forward to it. And of course, we're going to be playing in Poland as well, which will be TRIVAX's first time. This is going to be a very special run, and we are going to be supporting our album The Great Satan, which came out via Osmos Productions on the 30th of May earlier this year. So you can expect to hear a lot of those songs, and you can also expect to see us at the merch table. So please, if you're a fan of the podcast, feel free to come along and say hello at the merch table. I will be around, and so will the rest of TRIVAX, and we look forward to seeing you all in the flesh. There will be a number of other shows that TRIVAX are also doing outside of the tour, so make sure to keep an eye out on those as well. And of course, if you do also wish to support TRIVAX, you can visit our Bandcamp page. We've got very limited number of copies of The Great Satan available on there. If you go and check out and your format of choice is currently sold out, you can also get your copies directly from Osmos Productions. And with that said, thank you for your support and enjoy the rest of the podcast. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's actually a very good point. I mean, even if you want to put it in the context of just streams, which I know that's something that you've talked about quite a lot, which we can get into that if you want, but even in the context of streams, people might look at a band, who might, let's say, hypothetically have 1 million streams. That's a decent number, but how many of that is just the same people listening to the song over and over again? Or because Spotify's decided to loop it back into their feed, if you will, And I think
there's a lot of weird disconnects.
Yeah.
Just because I have this whole this whole the reality of this that I find really interesting is we're in this place where the first impression that most people in the music industry have of your viability as an artist is Spotify monthly listeners.
Yeah.
Whether that's right or not, I'm not saying. I'm just saying that is the first impression people have. Okay. Other platforms cannot do that because Spotify has 90% of the market or something crazy, right? So if your band has 10,000 on Spotify and then 300 on Apple, that just makes Apple or 1,000 on Apple, that just makes Apple look small and sad, right? So they can't do that. But what happens is now the artists know that the Spotify monthlies is one of the most important stats, and so they're giving Spotify free marketing, which I don't know how to fix that, bro.
No, but it's a true thing, and I'll give you a first-hand experience of it. When we did the music video for Azrael, that was 2 years ago. Now on YouTube, that's close to 1 million views. Okay, which by YouTube standards, in the context of black metal, I like to think that's pretty good. Yeah. But the thing with that was the album itself didn't pick up as much on Spotify. Okay, so even though we had this video that was going viral at the time, in terms of gigs personally, I didn't see a huge difference until we then released this newest album, Great Satan, back in May, and then that actually had more traction on Spotify, and then all of a sudden there was an upgrade in the shows and all the other stuff that's happening. Do you get what I'm saying? So I've kind of lived that firsthand.
Yeah, and there's weird reasons for that, right? Because the one thing is it's a lot easier to blow up your YouTube streams with ads than it is Spotify. To grow,
which, by the way, sorry to interrupt you there. We used no ads for that video. It just the algorithm just decided to flick the switch on it for whatever reason. I think
100%. And I wasn't trying. Yeah, and I wasn't trying to imply that. I was just just
I a clarification. That's all.
So from the ad campaign side, so it's a lot easier to just blow up a song on YouTube, views on YouTube than Spotify streams. I think the way the ads work, in my experience, it relies a lot more on the song being really good. Although I like that song, I like your song and your video, but that video is also fucking cool. And
appreciate it.
And I don't know. I just think that there's this weird consumption thing, but also YouTube is one of the main music discovery platforms that nobody talks about. Right? It's also YouTube is secretly the only social media that really matters for people under 21. If you look at the numbers for people under 21 with what they're consuming, YouTube is a huge chunk of it, even compared to TikTok or whatever. TikTok aged up real quick. So I don't know. I just watch history YouTube. So who am I to judge?
That's a good point, man. Yeah, because I was talking to this girl earlier, and she was saying that her like YouTube like weekly consumption was something like 40 odd hours or something like that. You know, because sometimes as well you just play stuff and have it in the background. It's definitely interesting to see the comparison. I kind of want to sort of reel this back a little bit, Matt, if that's okay with you. I
Sure,
kind of
sure,
want to
sure.
focus a little bit on yourself and your background. And I do appreciate you might have elaborated on this a bit elsewhere, but how did you
Yeah,
actually
of course.
end up working in the music industry? Like, I'm just coming in as a fan.
So when I was 14, my family moved to Paris for my dad's job. And I had been going to like a weird alternative school in America, and like I was getting into extreme metal. And I'd like heard Swans and stuff. Like I was like, okay, I think I like weird music. But I hadn't but then I moved to Paris, and it was like instead of being at like this nerdy alternative school, I was in like the International School of Paris, which is like fine, but it's definitely not like you're not like meeting other kids who are like curious about weird demos. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
like I remember with my best friend from middle school, we like discovered harsh noise because we were like, this is so fucked up. What the hell? Like just because we were curious. It wasn't even like a what's the most extreme thing? It was more like someone's making a song with a power drill. Like,
Yeah.
um so I moved to Paris, and I like didn't have any friends, and it really sucked. And so me and my one of my childhood best friends, Heroin Dan, um, we decided to start a blog about heavy metal so I could meet more people who like Dark Throne. And I know. And
Beautiful.
and so like then I just started writing about music, and then but I was like 14, so I didn't like get it quite yet, you know?
Hmm.
But what kind of ended up happening was um I like figured out, oh, I could like write about unsigned bands, and unsigned bands will actually talk like share my articles, right? Where like before I was like writing about like Panzerfaust, but like no one's gonna read what a 14-year-old says about Panzerfaust, right? And so then I just started to do that, and then I started to like understand pretty quickly like oh, here's how like underground music works. And I started to make some friends who I'm still friends with today. Like I wrote the first ever reviews of like Insanity Alert and Party Cannon, which is like
Oh, that's cool.
kind of weird. That I've known those guys since like more than half my life. And like very early on when I started to take it seriously, I met Gunnar Sauerman. I was like 15, just because he was doing PR at Season of Mist, and I thought Season of Mist was cool, right? And I started to like make these connections, and I was writing a lot. I was writing like 10 reviews a week or something. Like I had a whole strategy for like, oh, I'm gonna just write about every band in this submission thread I made on Ultimate Guitar Forums, and then I started to like make friends with the PR people, and this was kind of still this was 14, 15 years ago. This was still the era when you had a lot of these cool like small metal blogs, you know, which doesn't really exist as much of a thing anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
And so by doing that, I was able to like start making some pretty cool friends, and then that led to like starting to be involved in the metal scene in Paris, right? Like it fulfilled the goal of like making friends. So then I started booking shows, I started running a record label and put out some stuff. I actually started the record label with a guy I met in Helvete because I went to Oslo when I was like 17. I met a guy, and I was like, I think we like all the same music. Let's be friends. So we started to do that, and that was really cool. And then when the time came to like go to university and I moved back to America, I convinced a PR company to hire me. And that was like my part-time job the summer before university, and then in university, which was cool, and I learned a lot. And then I dropped out of college after like a year. I had like a full scholarship and I just was like, no, like this sucks. Because it was like I could go to philosophy class and like be the person who actually did the reading, or I could like book a hardcore show and 200 people would come.
Fuck yeah.
Like that,
Is that is
like
that
I
how
was
you managed
like,
to get the name Dropout?
yeah. Oh yeah. So the company
Yeah,
Dropout
yeah.
Media. So basically, we're getting there. So basically, what
Yeah.
happened was drop out of
Cool.
college, move to Brooklyn. Like 2 months after moving to Brooklyn, the PR job dries up because of some stuff in homie's personal life. But all these clients still wanted to work with me because I was helping them a lot with their marketing. But it was kind of before I really knew what marketing was. Like it was a lot of stuff because I was still like a teenager, right? So like a lot of stuff was like intuitive because I knew how to like what cool social media posts were, and I knew like how to like I'd worked with a lot of bands and knew like here's how you go from starting your band to booking your first shows, right? Like I could like do that. And so yeah, that's when I kind of started my company, Dropout Media, which is the marketing agency I've run for the last like decade plus. Um and it kind of slowly grew from there, just kind of being like, okay, like how do we get clients? I managed a band called Tenker Cavalry who got pretty big at one point when I was still like very young, like 19, 20. And that opened a lot of doors and helped me make a lot of friends. And it was just like just pushing from there and gradually realizing like, oh, I like the marketing part a lot more than I like a lot of the other parts, you know? Even though I like obviously I still manage one band, because I believe in them very deeply. But like, but basically it was like, okay, like this is how I want to put my priorities. And then it was just a slow build, right? Where like there was definitely, I think, a few moments where it was like, oh, this is real now. Big ones are like when I got my first label client, Ripple Music, which I'm now part owner of. And I got them just by writing about every single release they did in Metal Injection until they took notice of me and were like, okay, this guy really likes us.
Yeah.
And then I ended up working with Prophecy Productions where I get to sign like Zesther and Coven and Magma and Arthur Brown, among other things. And so that was really cool.
Quite the selection of
And
names, especially when you put them all next to each other, right?
some of us have really good taste and can call our shots. Um,
I like it, man. Hell yeah, that's the
you
attitude.
know, and so around the time I started working for Prophecy was when I started the BaconsBits video series, which for people who don't know, it's like I wave a cigar around and give music industry advice 5 times a day. Um, and then things just kind of
I think everyone knows,
slowly
by the way.
built.
Just
Okay,
putting
I
it
don't
out
fucking
there.
know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, hopefully they do.
things have like slowly built over time, and like things stack. I really grew over the pandemic because it was like, oh, here's this guy doing ads. Our bands can't tour. This guy is able to make us money, in a way that other people were no longer able to make them money. You know what I mean? And so that kind of leads to me working with a label called Tank Crimes. And that went really well. And then their merch company hit me up. And then within like a year, I was working on like what was like with like a merch company, and I was helping them with ads. And then we were doing suddenly, very quickly, I'm working with like Boy Genius, and it's like who are like one of the biggest indie rock bands in the world, right? And so like, and then that moment led to all this other stuff, and now it's like, okay, now we have like 13 employees, and now we're like fucking hustling every day, and we're, and it's all kind of comes from like building on DIY and like, I think you and I are similar because we're both very obsessed with learning things, even if those things aren't directly tied to uh our jobs or passions, or
For sure. Yeah, yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like And so I think it really all just built from that. It really all just built from like, okay, like here's the core set of services. And we talked about this at one point, you and I, where it's like you understand, like, oh, okay, like we have this one big thing we do, but which could be like social posting and ads and marketing strategy and whatever. But what if we like break those off into smaller services? And then what if you sit down and you build the company where it's like we can do stuff for 18-year-olds booking their first show and meaningfully help them. We can also help artists sell out stadiums.
Gotcha.
And if you build a team that lets you do both those things, then you have a lot of flexibility because you're attacking different markets on multiple levels, right? Like there's this like blue ocean strategy thing where you understand where you sit down and try to understand like here's where my competition is. Here's what I do. What are the parts that I do where my competition doesn't exist? Or where does no one exist and where how can I move into the dark spot on the map? Slash, is there value in that dark spot on the map? And so I spend a lot of time doing that because obviously there's other like marketing agencies who I'm very, very close friends with, right? Who I'm like sharing a lot of information with and building with. But obviously, I think there's always a friendly rivalry. There's always a desire to be the dopest. You know what I
Of
mean?
course. Yeah, yeah.
Or,
I mean, if you're
but
not
also
doing
I
that, then
think,
like, why are you doing it in the
what the
first place,
hell?
kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, yeah.
But also, like, I think beyond being the dopest is understanding, like, what do you actually want to do? What's your goal? Because I think some people want to do, like, very pointed creative agencies or, like, individual creative marketing projects. And then I want to build, like, a interesting, scalable business that, like, stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying to build systems where it's like, if we were doing like 5 times the business tomorrow, could I do it?
Yeah, yeah.
And the answer is like no, but if we did double the business tomorrow, we probably could, you know?
I got it. Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so it's just like trying to figure out like how do we build that way? And how do we build something that kind of runs on its own? Because I can't work 80 hours a week 15 years from now. Like
Ye-
I know those guys and like I love those guys, but like I need to be like this is really cool for right now, but I need to like sleep more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No, of course, man. Well, I think a very key thing there in what you're saying, and I hope that people who are listening are taking notes of this as well. Okay, whether it's in the realm of PR or management or whatever it is, I think one thing that I can pick on is that the sole focus of a business, instead of so much just being growth, should be also just providing a service, like providing a value. Well, why do you want to be the dopest? Because you can offer the most service, because you can actually
yeah,
bring more value. Whether, like you
yeah,
said, it's to the band that are just trying to book their first couple of gigs, or whether it's the stadium you're trying to sell out. That's like a value that you're trying to bring to the table. And I think that with that kind of mindset, you can change worlds. There's a lot you can do with that.
but yeah, and I think the important thing to me is like always pulling it from a DIY perspective because one of
Hmm.
the things that's been interesting as I grow in the music industry is like obviously there's a lot of guys like me who are like DIY guys who figured out they were good at a few specific things and then they were able to like level up, or figure out like whatever. Like you and I both have a lot of friends with like cool DIY careers, and that's great, right? Or cool careers that they built out of DIY, and that's great. But I think that as you grow, you start to meet people who like don't have that, like you'll be in some of these meetings and like some of these people have never been to a basement show. Some of these people like have never like stage dived, like and that's fine, because maybe they're in it for different reasons. But I think that coming from it from an approach of like my knee doesn't work because of stage diving, and like like my back is just never gonna be fixed because I slept in the van for a couple years, like just on tour. It's like, and then also I think being like a really deep nerd, which is something else you and I have in common, right? Is I think you and I both get a lot of joy out of being dorks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I'd
But
never deny that. Yeah, yeah.
but I consistently see myself getting clients where other people don't, and like winning uh bids because I was like not even necessarily because I thought I was like the smartest or best person in the room, but because I was like the guy who was like I got a really big client because I'd like slept in the squat in their town. And I like made a joke. I was like, "Oh, you live there?" Like I stayed in that squat, and they were like, "Bro, what?" And I was like, and
Interesting.
and it's like that stuff like also gets me the type of people I want to work with more, because I really love like it's nothing is sicker than like being side stage at something huge with like your buddies who you like slept in a squat with, and like looking out and there's like 10,000 people and you're like, bro, what? You know what I mean? Like that's way cooler to me than just because that, but like if you're able to bring that attitude to a higher level, I think that benefits everyone because it's like people see that like sort of grassroots passion or whatever. And I think that's the world we're in.
That's fucking awesome, man. I love hearing stuff like that. And
I don't know.
yeah, I think that's a mindset we've got in common for sure. And I think that you kind of need that to begin with, because I think in music there is money in it, but compared to other things, it's like the same kind of effort. Like let's say you're saying like 80-hour worth of
Yeah.
work per week. That same type of work, if you were, I don't know, working in fucking insurance or something, would probably be far more lucrative even compared to like having 10,000 people in front of you at a gig, because, this is the harsh reality of the industry that we work in, even if you can call it an industry at this point. But you do
Yeah.
need to have that passion, I think, to really
Yeah.
glue everything together.
100%. I definitely always joke that when I'm ready to retire, I'll just go do BaconsBits on LinkedIn about small business and add a zero to all the services. Call it
There
a
you go.
day. So
That's
basically, I think what Vin McKenty did.
Yeah. Yeah. That was an interesting one actually, and yeah, man. I think it is interesting to look at it that way. Also, hey, just a quick moment of your time. For the past 3 years, Iblis Manifestations has been entirely self-funded. This means that every subscription fee, every piece of equipment, all of the travel expenses have come out of my own pocket. Over time, people have asked me how they can support the podcast, and to be honest with you, up until now, the answer's been pretty straightforward, and that is simply spread the word. But now, there's another way. I have set up a Patreon account where followers of the podcast will be able to make monthly donations to the podcast, and this will help cover the costs of streaming gear and basically everything else that goes into making this show. This isn't about making a profit, and to be completely honest, it's not about breaking even either, because that's certainly not been the case for the last 3 years. However, if you do find value in the conversations that we're having on this podcast and wish to help them forward, then you can now support the show. Just head to the link in description and hit the Patreon button. In addition to that, be sure to check out the Iblis Manifestations Big Cartel page where we will be selling exclusive merchandise for the podcast. At the moment, we got the Extreme Podcast for Extreme People t-shirts, limited to only 30 copies, and the pre-orders will be sent out from the 1st of July. So the link for that is in the description. And in the future, the Big Cartel page will also include some occult accessories and jewelry, which will be handcrafted by myself. And we will also be selling merch and records by other bands as Iblis will expand into a label of its own. And, of course, it goes without saying, Thank you for supporting Iblis manifestations. It is much appreciated. One thing that I think is also important to note here as well, because this is a common thread. I think one of the panels at Inferno were actually talking about this, and it's something that I've noticed more and more as I've started to work with just different people in the industry for TRIVAX, and then now we got the Weird Stuff project coming up, which, by the way, very excited to have you on board for that one. That's going to be
Yeah,
pretty
that'll be
killer.
fun.
Yeah, I'll have to send you the actual album, man. I don't know if you've even heard it
Please
yet,
do.
but it's
I have not.
I have some kind of an insight into your taste and the things that you're interested in, and I think you will be I think you'll at least be intrigued by what we've got going on here. I only just listened to the final mix earlier today, and it's fucking
fuck yeah.
huge. So that's all I'm going to
yeah.
say so far. But just coming back into it, based on personal experience, one thing that I've learned is that with music in general, especially because so many of these people started in either the 80s or 90s, like, for example, we're working with Osmos for TRIVAX right now, and those guys have been going for like 30 plus years. There's like no blueprint as to how to like run a label or how to manage a band or how to like book shit, like there's and there's like so many like big labels or at least like people in the industry now who everyone just kind of has their own way of doing shit as well. Like there's no like one size fits all approach when it comes to that, so I think it's really interesting that you were able to do what you've done, but it seems to me that you've kind of learned your skills as you've kind of gone along and done it as well, rather than necessarily going to like a college education or like reading like a single book or something like that just to get the skills that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like the issue I had with university and the thing that I see a lot of people struggling with is sort of this like reactive versus proactive mindset, And I think that you go to, you know, uh, kindergarten through 12th grade or whatever, and then you go to college if you choose to go to college or university. And I think you're very much in like a reactive place where people aren't really pushing you to make your own choices. You're just being given things to do. And that kind of prepares you to be a worker, which is fine. But I think that, good things really only like don't come out of being reactive. They come out of like taking an initiative, and I think something I do is work really hard to put time in my life focused on being proactive, right? Because it's very easy for anyone to get lost in the email wormhole and black hole, not wormhole. If it was wormhole, I'd be going somewhere good. Or the Dominion. That was a Deep Space Nine reference for you kids at home. But you like Star Trek, right?
Yes, although it's something that I watched in Iran as a child,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I'm yet to revisit it as an adult.
I have a lot of questions about that, but we're not going to get into it. But
It's okay.
But okay, so what I'm trying to say is like it's so easy to get stuck in like these reactive loops where you're like replying to emails or doing what you're told. And that's fine. Like you can make a living that way, but I think if you're really trying to like do something cool, this isn't some sort of like manosphere like become a millionaire by 24 or else you're wasting your life. It's more like if you're trying to do cool shit, like that doesn't happen to you. Like you have to like do the things. And my feeling has always been that in university especially kind of gets you in a place where it's like, oh, I spent all this money and time and worked really hard to like learn how to do the things. But I don't think that necessarily always sets you up to like taking your own action, which is like what I like about DIY, right? Is that it was like a way for me as a very young person, a way for a lot of my friends as very young people to kind of discover what we could do on our own. You know what I mean? And like no one like your parents don't like want you to go to like tiny shows and squats where like you could die. You know what I mean? Like your parents don't want you to like I don't know,
Well,
wind up
my
with a
first
casual
shows were
disrespect.
at a high school in Iran,
Yeah, you
where
told
it
me
was
this story. Yeah,
illegal. Yeah, and they set the fucking
yeah,
place on fire. So I
yeah.
don't know if
And
my
this is what I'm
parents
saying,
necessarily
right?
wanted that either.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
Like it's not, but it's not about that, right? Like it's about like, well, if you take action consistently over time and you make cool friends, then cool shit happens, right? And I just think that that's like so beat out of people for any number of reasons. You know what I mean? And I think that's really sad. And I try to always just advocate that for people because I think like I didn't go to school, but I'm like over here like hashing out marketing strategies with people with like master's degrees and whatever. And it's just because like Harvard tells you what you need to fucking read for Harvard Business School. Those books are not that expensive, right? Like some of them are really hard, and like I'll definitely like read some of specifically the Harvard Business Review books and be like, but like you have fucking Google, you have fucking Chat GPT, like
exactly.
you can put terms you don't understand into the internet and like figure it out. And then like if people see you're proactive, then higher level people start to go like, oh, this guy's really trying, like let me teach him something. Because again, these things don't just happen to you. Like no one like selects you and is like you will be brought up. Like you have to, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? And that's like been my entire life, has never been like, and I especially feel that way with like metal and DIY, right? Where it's really like either you're doing stuff or I don't fucking know. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think
And
that I love that style of thinking first and foremost. And to your point, you say like you don't know why it's beaten out of people to be proactive. I think that a big part of it, to
I
be
mean, I do know
honest with you,
why. I just
yeah.
disagree with it.
Well, yeah, yeah, and I share the same viewpoint, and I think a lot of it also comes down to fear of failure. I think
Yeah.
and is the classic saying that you'll more than likely regret the things you didn't do rather than the things you did do, and and that's kind of been the case for me. If I can make a personal example of it, like this podcast alone, okay,
Yeah.
something that. I just started doing it because I thought it would be fun, and I actually part of it was my frustration with written interviews. I was always like, like I just never felt like my personality and thought process came through in interviews. And everyone can do an interview and make yourself sound like an edgelord, but how well can you say shit on the spot and actually have your personality and your real beliefs projected into that? Which of course, as a frontman, that's kind of like, that's the part that people will then connect to. People will either fucking hate it or they'll like it, and they think, oh wow, you're speaking the truth, but nevertheless, I think that that's a powerful thing, that you need that sort of connection, because everyone can play riffs, right? Everyone can come and
Yeah.
make some noise or pay someone, or now you can even fucking throw it at like AI or whatever, just give it a prompt and then say, write me like a black metal album. But how many people actually have a fucking personality that you can connect to? So for me, part of that, I just had interesting stories to share about a fucking ghost written flat that I lived in Birmingham. I thought I really want to share this with people, and I don't know how to do it on like a Facebook or Twitter status, so I'm just going to record myself talking about it. Flash forward 3.5 years later, on the same podcast, I've gotten to speak to literally pretty much like everyone that I grew up listening to, and some of like the
Yeah.
people that laid the foundations of the genre that, once upon a time I risked my life to listen to and play in Iran, which is like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
fucking crazy. And that's all a result of just being proactive. That's all it is, really.
Yeah. No, like and like I also one of the things I think is really funny is like uh sometimes that bar is like the bar for cool shit to start to happen is way lower than people think.
Hmm.
Um, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there's a lot of hard work, but like you like once you start like act like once you get the flywheel moving, like once you get the snowball going down the hill, like very quickly, like good things start to like unleash. It's just about getting the ball rolling and just keeping it going, and that's always kind of been my experience is like I have so many friends where it's like, oh, we were able to pull the trigger once and now it's become way easier and now all this other stuff is going, right? It's like the same with bands. Like once you get like a one cool tour, but not even that, before that, if you like get a really good live show and you start playing locally and then you start playing regionally, that is completely within the capability of anyone listening to this podcast, you know? And then, okay, now we can level that. Now we can level that. Now we can level that. But you have to like do that, and like, yeah, it's going to take a lot of time and it's probably going to suck ass for a while, but like pretty quickly, suddenly you're in a new town and you're playing a show there and like, that's cool, you know? Um,
Absolutely. Well,
and
one thing that I think you and I very much are like-minded on, and I think I'm actually sure I've heard you say the same thing in some of your reels and bacon bits that you do. But like a lot of bands, like younger bands, and I was certainly guilty of this earlier on, like some years ago. You kind of sit around, especially in the more black metal mindset, where you think you're special, and
yeah.
like newsflash, you're not, but you can be if you actually work hard. Don't listen to what the fucking South American Facebook comments will tell you. Just fucking ignore that and and touch grass a bit. But what I will say is like, a lot of bands will bitch about like, oh, no one's like offering us shows or like no one's offering us tour. Well, book your own then. Like do like
Well,
create
it's like
your own situation.
the amount of bands I work with who just started their own festival, and
Hmm.
then that like led to every door opening. Because if you start your own festival, so even if it's my friends at Sick Bay, great example. Um, it's called Left. Edit this part out while I look it up because this is actually my friend, and I'm being a bad friend right now.
That's okay. Let me make a note of it.
uh, my friend. Okay. Uh, my friends in Sick Bay have Back from the Dead Fest in New York.
Okay.
It's not huge, a few hundred people, but it opened all these doors. Now they're friends with booking agents. Now they're friends with every band in the region. Now there's bands outside the region who want to play the festival. Now they've made all these connections. They get to do cool stuff for like a band who are like not trying to be like full-time touring all the time, but like that, Ripplefest, Texas, my friend Ryan and client Ryan, like he fucking built it from small, took a couple risks, took a couple knocks. Now his band's on their like third European tour of the year, and having the festival to make the connections opened a lot of the doors. Bonginator with New England Fun Time Death Metal Bonanza, I think it's called.
That's
Um,
a mouthful.
but yeah, but like it's sick. And now they've like kind of been able to elevate the scene around them, right? None of those bands were getting festivals before they started doing their own festival. You know what I mean? Like, or like meaningful festivals. Now they're all like getting like real shots because they like put something together. And I think it's like that willingness to do the work. It's like, Cyrus the Great, like they all call him like a shopkeeper or whatever. And it's like, no, like he like figured out taxation across like 2 million square miles, I think. And like just kept going and like, okay, cool. Like there was hiccups. Like obviously like Cambyses kind of sucks. But like then you get a Darius. Boom, we're back in action, you know? And then, and it's like, okay, cool. Like it just was like these guys like actively taking initiative, and it's like you have like the most embarrassing failure possible with like Xerxes looking down at Salamis, which I think is the funniest story from ancient history. And because like, okay, so if you don't know, Xerxes was a Persian king, and 2,505 years ago and 8 days today, I think, um, he like set up a throne to look down at this naval battle where like his 1,207 Persian ships were going to destroy all the Greeks and like take over Greece, and the Persians got annihilated. Bad planning. pretty funny actually. But like, okay, so he like took an L. He still had like the sickest empire for another like couple hundred years, right? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
maybe don't become like a conqueror because I think he died in a weird way. But like, the point remains like, so it's just like people doing the work, like, and then that leads to cool shit. And like sometimes you roll the dice and it blows up in your face in a really big bad way. But like,
What an
I'm listening to Tom
analogy, man.
Holland's. I'm listening to Tom Holland's Persian Fire right now. I'm fucking
Tom Holland's is fucking awesome, man. Do you
yeah,
listen
he's
to
the
his?
best.
He's so cool. Do you listen to his latest one on trigonometry?
I have not yet. I
Bro, that's
should.
really good. He did a fantastic job of basically, just talking about mostly the history of religions and Christianity, but he also made this fantastic argument for why Islam is not compatible with the secularism in the West, which is something
Yeah,
that I've kind of been screaming on the rooftops about ever since I actually arrived in the UK. But he actually made a very solid academic kind of an argument for it, and then actually lays out the laws. And he doesn't necessarily have a dog in the game either, but it was just I thought he put it down brilliantly, so I highly recommend people to check it out. It wasn't long ago, it was only a few weeks ago it came out.
yeah, but also just generally like Tom Holland Rest is History podcast. Very, very helpful for getting perspective on why the world is the way it is.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but all that to say, like, just always comes down to proactivity and, thinking about I always think about like just the constant motion of like one of my favorite things about like Julius Caesar is that he was writing like they people would like be confused by him because he'd be like dictating like five letters at once. And because he just like was just operating at like this insane level.
It
It's
was a
like
Caesar word salad.
no, but like basically, like it's like crazy to like think about this stuff and then be like, oh, but like how can I like put myself into like that level of constant motion to like get stuff done? You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think it's important to like I have like this thing I say where I think it's like while great man theory of history is not actually true, it's really important to believe in it and to aspire to it.
I
Because it's
I
like you have to like believe you can make an impact, even if like okay, it's more of like a trends and forces psychohistory thing, but like you have to believe you can make an impact all the time. Otherwise, I think you're losing out on some of the cool stuff.
fucking 100%, man. I adore this train of thought, and it's something I strive for personally on a day-to-day basis, and it's something that you kind of got to be consistent with it as well. You need to like keep reminding yourself about that. And one thing that I find is a great motivator, and I appreciate this might be a little morbid to some people, but to me, I think the thought of death is a very motivating
Oh
thing
yeah.
when it comes to that. It's like, okay, yeah, you got an expiry date. The sands of time are working against you. So what are you gonna do in the time you got?
Yeah. How do I get the dopest gravestone ever, like Cyrus the Great?
Right?
Do you know about this?
Yes, I've
Yeah.
seen it.
So
Yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
cool. You've seen it?
I've been to Persepolis, Tahta Jamshid. I visited there when
That's
I
so
was
cool.
14 years old, listening to Slipknot in one earphone and then looking at all the other stuff there on the
That
other
is
side.
probably the one place in the world I most want to go.
Sure. Yeah, no, but look, same for me as well, man. Because at the time, you got to understand, 14 years old. I would like to think for a 14-year-old, even though, I was kind of, I was kind of I want to say brave, but I kind of like did a lot of crazy stuff. And as I got older, realized I had all this power as a person that
Yeah.
that like the rules and the laws couldn't hold me back. I did a lot of really crazy shit. Some actually rather self-destructive later on that I kind of learned. Okay, it's better to just be healthy and whatever. But I digress. At the time, with all of that aside, I still did have my head on my shoulder, so I did really appreciate um, the history of it all. But I would give anything to go back there. I doubt it'd happen under the current government of Iran. Considering I'm pretty sure they just took out the Farsi YouTube channel of Iblis, but it's either them or the Qatari government. But one of them took it out. But nevertheless, I would love to go back there, and I highly recommend everyone else who can go there to go because it's eye opening. It's the cradle of civilization, and they call it that for a reason.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you can't go, I guess the closest you can go to it is the British Museum because, you know, they nicked all our stuff as they did everyone else's.
The one I think is really cool that people don't talk about, it's closed till 2027, but the Pergamon in Berlin has the actual walls of Babylon that like Alexander the Great looked at. Uh, also
That's
pretty
fucking
cool.
cool.
Also, like, okay, like definitely stolen from Iraq, but like, you know.
You know, I tell you, you mentioned Alexander the Great. I mean, that's another example of a guy being proactive. You know, I mean, by what he was like
Yeah.
mid late 20s, he had already like conquered and killed so many people. But you know, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good thing, but he was proactive. You know, he did a lot for
But
Greece, and to the point that
he's
Iron Maiden
also,
wrote a song about him. If Iron Maiden write a song about you, then you're cool. You know, like
then you're
it
good.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Done. No, I mean, like, I think what's interesting with Alexander the Great that like people don't talk about is so so we I was talking about like sometimes you have to like believe in yourself as a great person of history, and like force yourself forward. And this is like someone who like his mother Olympias is like really interesting and she's from like the north somewhere and she's like a witch and has like live snakes wrapped around her arms and stuff and has like this whole like girl squad of assistants who also have that. So it's like these weird crazy ladies. And she like kept telling him that he wasn't actually Philip of Macedon's son, he was the son of Zeus. And then he like goes to Arwas in Egypt and they're like, "Oh, you're the son of our equivalent of Zeus or something." And it's like imagine like that being like in your head and then instead of going crazy, you're like gonna be worshipped as a god. Let's go.
Yeah. That's like Mike Tyson
But
being hypnotized by his coach when he was
yeah.
younger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another one, right? Where it's like that level of like I am the greatest. I don't know. I think it's like something like there's a way to balance it, obviously. Um, and again, like you don't want to like delve into insanity and obviously, like you have to ground yourself in gratitude. You have to ground yourself in like I am just some asshole who will die and I probably won't have an Iron Maiden song written about me. But like
But you might.
maybe I mean, maybe I could get like a what's like the next coolest band to write a song about you? Um
Lost Profits? Oh no, maybe not. Sorry, man. I had to drop that in there.
okay. Okay. Um, anyway, yeah. So I don't know. This is the kind of stuff I try to figure out is like, how do we like, like the thing that goes through my head a lot with BaconsBits is like, how do I live my life in a way that has like the most positive impact on the most possible people with the brain I have and like with the capabilities I have slash can learn. And I kind of view it as like two-sided. Like I think on the one hand, like okay, so I have like this cool content platform and people pay attention when I talk and I can like encourage them to like be a better version of themselves and like educate them to like do stuff better. And that's great. But I also kind of view the marketing stuff as like genuinely like delivering music to people uh that they care about that could change their lives, that could open their eyes to something is also like fundamentally like an important thing to do. Like I view it very much especially with like the depressive suicidal black metal stuff where I do a lot in, especially with prophecy, right? And it's
Mm.
like, okay, so like that might seem nihilistic to like be putting out these disaster records where it's like, I'm not saying you should kill yourself, but here's some good reasons why.
Hmm.
Real fun day when my mom discovered that quote associated with an artist I signed. Um,
Yeah.
but but like I don't know, like for me, like those records like helped me out a lot when I was like a really depressed teenager because it was like, oh, here's like someone who like acknowledges like the utter misery of being a person.
Hmm.
Cool. You know what I mean? Like that meant a
Yeah.
lot to me. And I think that can help other people. And that's just like one example, right? Like I see it with a lot of other artists, obviously, in other genres and things people get out of it. Like it's more about that to me than it is about like making money. Although making money is cool. If you want to pay me, hit me up.
DM for consultations.
Exactly. That's what we're
Yeah.
about.
That's it, man. No, but it's very true what you're saying because I always refer to this music as musical shadow work, and I think that there is a real sense of comfort when especially in society, you kind of especially in today's world when certain things that are completely natural are things that you kind of you sort of push everything that's inconvenient under the rug in a way, and that's not good for us as people. I think that
Yeah.
like the amount of trauma, like collective trauma buildup in humans that we haven't dealt with is a fucking problem. And I'm not saying that dealing with that is necessarily like everyone like buying a bunch of crystals and then like crying and hugging each other. That's maybe not it either. But the way I look at it is that there has to be a room to exercise those things. It's almost like a physical
Yeah.
substance. And to me, I think this music is a great way to acknowledge the shadow self and at least be in touch with it somehow, and then use it as a. I like to look at this music as an exercise. I wouldn't go and listen to like Angel Corpse like on a 24-hour basis, although I would have done when I was like 15, 16. But then in the short period of time I listened to it and I kind of delved deep into that darkness and the violence, that is very real in the human psyche. It exists in us all. Then that's where that kind of value comes in. And that's how I also approach the live shows with TRIVAX. To me, that's a space. I hate to call it I hate to call it this, but it's almost like a it's like a safe space for the worst part of my own psyche to actually live and breathe in a physical format, which is it's a part that is threatening, that wants to conquer and kill, and it's the reptilian part of the mind, and then we collectively as a band tap into that energy, which is why our shows are quite intense to be in. But then at the same time,
Yeah.
there is that kind of a release that comes with it. It's almost like it pokes a hole in reality and just like it's like a pressure valve, of all that tension and the aggression and then the nonsense that you build up just because someone cut you in traffic, or because I don't know, like you went through like a breakup, or you had a horrible time, or you got laid off from your job, whatever it is. All that tension that's been building up around you, it just kind of gets channeled through this music, and then it creates for a wonderful and dare I say orgasmic experience collectively.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I think that with metal, a lot of that relies on it still feeling dangerous, which I think that a lot of metal has lost. Um, you
Mm,
know,
unfortunately.
and but I don't think you necessarily need, and I think that a sense of danger is present in many other genres. I think intense club music. Obviously, I live part-time in Berlin, and like, oh, nice cat. But like I think that like there's a real sense of danger to like intense underground club music in these dark spaces with weird people, and like, but I think that also like helps facilitate a lot of other stuff, and you see danger in other genres too, and I think like finding ways to bring that out is really helpful, and I think you find catharsis in other ways beyond just danger. I think some of my favorite records these days are like weird like emo records, where it's
Sure.
like, oh, this is like really dark and like miserable, but like kind of presented in this sparkly way. Uh,
Hmm.
I
I
think
like that.
that because like the thing about music, right, is like it's like a consequence-free emotion altering drug. And so like you need the emotions to
Consequence
be at
for
like
emotionally altering drug.
consequence-free emotion altering
Consequence
drug,
free emotional altering drug. That's awesome.
right?
Love
Because
that.
like what you're talking about is like catharsis through like a black metal performance with TRIVAX, right? But obviously, you can get that catharsis in other ways, you know. Um, when you're listening to the streets or something. I love the streets. But
Yeah, yeah.
but it's like, so you need to like augment that emotional component, I think, as far as possible for things to really click with people in most cases, because I think that it's, it like we make fun of it, but like that guy who went super viral, like crying at the Hinder show.
Oh
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, but
Yeah.
like, it's a like, and Hinder's like fine. Like I've worked with them, like, sure, you know, but like, that's just another example of like people getting catharsis from the music. And it's just like the raw emotion of that song, like clearly resonated with millions and millions and millions of people, especially that guy. And like, I think that's great. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about anything. It's just about like, are people connecting with this emotionally? Good. Let's push that more, And so the fact that anyone is able to do that with their art, I think is really important, whoever it
Yeah,
is.
bro. It's a fascinating thing, and I think to me, in the context of music, at least for the reasons that I picked up the guitar, and perhaps you'll relate to this to an extent, even in your line of work, like I'll make the perfect example. Last year in Germany, in Hanau, we headlined this small festival called Azadi, which I think I told you about it
Yeah, we
before,
talked about this. Yeah.
because we played it again, but yeah, in our first show that we did there, this was April last year, and at the front there was this guy who I've connected since, and I know him, and he's from Ahwaz, which is like a southern province
Yeah.
in Iran. It's like a southwest province, and this guy literally, I hope he wouldn't mind me sharing this, but he literally, like, his I think his like brother got killed by the regime, and then like his father was arrested, and like he had a bunch of people close to him completely fucked up, ended up escaping the country, and he was actually he drove like fucking like 2 hours or something just to be at our show, because he knew there was this festival happening. There was like a metal festival, but
Yeah.
then he was kind of supporting the Iranian movement. And he was at the front row, and we did this cover of an old Persian pop song. I won't say by who, because we're gonna actually release this at some point in the future.
Nice.
Yes, I'll tell you about it off camera. But we did this song, and I remember being on stage. And on stage, I don't always remember stuff because I'm just in like a whirlwind of chaos.
Yeah.
But I remember looking to my left and seeing him in the front of the stage, and I kid you not, Matt, like his whole face was like a waterfall. He was just bawling his eyes out, and I was just like, right, that's fucking real,
Like that's what it's about, right? Is it's like, and I think people have a willingness to show those emotions makes the concert better,
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah.
This is the best. Matt, my brother, this has been an absolute fucking
Thank you
pleasure,
so much,
man.
Cheyenne.
Thank you so much. We'll have to do another one again at some point. Maybe we'll do an in-person one, and we'll dig a bit deeper into like history or some other shit. Some more nerdy talk for people. But this has been awesome, man. Love what you're doing.
Here is
yeah.
I was gonna say here's my analysis of every Alexander the Great set piece battle in order.
Bro, I'll have to tell you a thing about him as well. There was this Iranian TV show called Shabhay Barare, means Nights of Barare. This was like a huge hit in Iran. And it was literally, it still to this day is one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. And they had this little hole. It was like a small pothole where Alexander the Great allegedly fell in. It was all made up. But then that pothole became legendary because Alexander the Great like broke his ankle on the thing. And they had an episode where someone was walking around with the bag, and they're like looking at the pothole saying like, "Oh, where is it? Oh, someone stole the pothole." And then there's someone with a bag, and the thing is just filled. Obviously, it's just so stupid, man. It's brilliant
I love
stuff. I'll have to show you that sometime. But yeah,
Please
just coming
do.
back just coming back into it, man. Yeah, I appreciate your time. I love what you're doing with BaconsBits. I think what you're doing is really valuable to young musicians and people and artists. And I wish actually I had seen some of your content like 10 years ago, you know. But, you know, better that it's out there now for a lot of the other kids trying to make it.
We're trying.
Absolutely, man. Anything you want to share very last minute with people? Any plugs, anything like that?
Check out BaconsBits. Check out my new music industry podcast, My Point 4 Cents, with Jesse Cannon, Dustin Boyer, and Andrew Southworth. That's been really fun to do and exciting. Follow the Instagram, the TikTok. I hope you might learn something. Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun.
Been my pleasure, man. All of that will be linked in the description. Thank you, Matt, and thank you to all for listening to the episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Support Matt Bacon, and we'll see you on the next episode of Iblis Manifestations.
Bye now.